Hi, everyone. My name is Kirk Bachman, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dish. Today, I'm speaking with Los Angeles-based cookbook author, chef, and food writer, Gaby Dalkin, known as the go-to girl for all things California and superwoman behind the digital cooking empire and blog, What's Gaby Cooking, which started back in 2009. Today, her site, which houses original recipes, meal plans, lifestyle, and travel content, attracts millions of people every month to her social media platforms, and it continues to grow with over 900,000 followers on Instagram. What's Gaby Cooking has also been profiled in People, Glamour, The New Yorker, Better Homes and Gardens, Los Angeles Times, and more. Gaby has also authored 4 cookbooks, including What's Gaby Cooking, Everyday California Food, and Take It Easy, Recipes for Zero Stress Deliciousness. She's also known for her popular line of products for Williams-Sonoma, including seasonings, salsas, infused oils, cheese boards, cocktail mixers, and more. Gaby currently lives in sunny Los Angeles with her husband, Thomas, and daughter, Poppy. So join me today as we speak with Gaby about what a day in her life looks like, building her brand from scratch, and the key ingredients it takes to become a successful food blogger. And there she is. How are you?
Hi, I'm so good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm exhausted after that intro. And I'm not gonna lie, Gaby. This is like probably the best part of my year.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. This is good. It's going to be such a great podcast.
Yeah. We'll have a lot of fun. My wife insisted that I say she's a fan,
What's her name?
her name's Gretchen.
Hi,
Her
Gretchen.
name. Oh God, she's gonna love that. She's gonna love that. I did a little bit of digging. I'm gonna dive right in, and it sounds like you come from a family of doctors, but you took a little bit different route, and
Yes.
you ended up leaving a sort of a fashion, career, and you became a private chef. You got into the world of blogging. I'm just gonna let you go for a minute. Talk about your love of cooking and what prompted you to dedicate your career to making people smile through food. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. It's my favorite part about my job. I mean, yes, I come from a family of doctors. I went to pre-med in college, and about halfway through, I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is not for me. I love helping people. And so I think that through line carried through to where I ended up. But I switched my major to business and ended up graduating with a business degree and going into fashion, PR, and marketing after school. And that was back in 2008. And if everybody remembers, it was like a rough year for the economy.
Everyone.
Yeah. And the company I was at right out of college folded. And thankfully, I had babysat and worked my way through, like I worked while I was in college and playing tennis there. So I had some money saved up. And rather than going to get another job right away, I decided to enroll myself in culinary school. And it was a really small program here in LA. I didn't want to take out any loans. So I wanted something that was a little bit affordable. And I went to a small once a week program for a year and somehow managed to get a job as a private chef on week 2, which is hysterical. If you saw what my fish looked like those first few weeks of culinary school, it like at my private chef job, it would be appalling. Like it was so sad. I didn't
But
know how to
you
steer.
were learning every step of the way, right?
100%. So I
Yeah.
just like threw myself into the culinary world. And honestly, I didn't really know where it would take me. I wasn't planning on staying in food, but I was in culinary school. I was working as a private chef, and I started my website, What's Gaby Cooking, which was just, like a little bitty baby food blog at the time, to kind of chronicle my way through school and show my friends and my family what I was learning. And, it was a hobby. And, it slowly started picking up steam, and the blog developed over time. And I left one personal chef job to get another personal chef job once people started hearing about me and I was a little bit better about networking. And that was, like you said, in 2009. Fast forward 14 years later.
Wow.
I haven't left the culinary world, never planned to, and I don't private chef anymore, but I couldn't love where I am. And I generally think people who like to cook and like to eat and enjoy bringing people around your table are good people. So I feel like I'm in a really good company. I love what I do.
I see the word, and you can tell, I see the word celebration a lot. Is it all about celebrating just community, being together, food,
Yeah.
putting
I
smiles on people's faces?
I'm a glass half full kind of person. I choose to wake up and be happy every morning. And I love feeding people, and feeding people makes everyone happy. So I celebrate every day, whether it's having breakfast with my daughter or having a dinner party with friends on a random weeknight, whatever it is. Like, I love giving that to people. And the fact that I can do that for millions of people online that I don't actually get to see every day is like a real highlight for my career.
Isn't it amazing how food can just be like that common denominator? It just puts everything on the same level, right?
Yeah,
And
it's a great equalizer, and everybody has to eat. So, it
so,
doesn't have to be complicated or fancy or anything. Everyone just wants a great meal.
Hey, Chef Kirk here. Just wanted to take a quick break from the show to chat about you. If you're curious about culinary school and the types of careers it could open up for you, our team at Escoffier created a tool that might help. Just head to escoffier.edu/tool. That's escoffier.edu/TOOL. You can get access to a downloadable career interest survey and answer a few questions to see if you might be geared towards the culinary arts, pastry arts, hospitality, or restaurant operations. Get more clarity on the right culinary path for you. Head to escoffier.edu/tool to take this easy assessment. Now back to the show.
what came first? So you have the platform to reach people. You're doing it through food. Was it your love of, obviously you've got a personality and you have the technical know-how, and food was just, that was going to be the medium, or was it, I've got a message I need to get across to people about food, and this is how I'm going to do it?
Yeah, it was the first of those. I did not know what my message was, and I actually didn't know what it was for quite some time. Like, I knew, actually, I don't know if I knew exactly what I stood for the first couple years. I remember right when I started the vlog, I kept applying to be on Food Network's Next Food Network Star. And they would be like, what's your personal brand statement? And I'd be like, I literally couldn't tell you. I could tell you today, but I couldn't tell you back then. So I think it took actually quite a bit of time for me to really develop my voice and what I stood for. And it was not until I started working with one of my mentors to kind of like hone in on the branding of What's Gaby Cooking. I just word vomited to her for like a week straight. And she came back to me and she's like, well, Gaby, like, you're this California girl next door that makes everything accessible. And I was like, it was that easy, Lori? And she's like, no, but like, when you take a step back and you look at someone else's messaging, it's easy to kind of like look at, oh, all these things is what makes Gaby Gaby. And here's how to say it in a really eloquent way.
I was going to say something about a mentor. Can you talk about that mentor or others?
I've had a lot of incredible mentors in my life. Lori Buckle is one of them. She used to work in the publishing side of the world. She was at Meredith. She was like all the Better Homes and Gardens, all that kind of stuff. She was at Bone App, I believe, like long time, or I don't remember, but she came from the publishing side of things, and she is probably a little bit younger than my mom and really helped me develop what What's Gaby Cooking was, as far as writing it down on paper and putting the message out there. So I could keep those nuggets of information in my brain every time I'm writing a blog post, every time I'm on a TV show. Like, what is I trying to say? Like, what's my story and what's my brand? I've had other really incredible mentors. Janet Hayes, who's the CEO over at Crate and Barrel, has been a huge mentor of mine and like a giant cheerleader. I think that's a really important part of, finding your footing in a career, is looking up to people and asking them if they can chat and help and grab a coffee, and that you can bounce ideas off of them. I feel very fortunate that I have a lot of those people in my life.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about trailblazing. We'll go all the way back to 2009 again, when you first started What's Gaby Cooking, when blogs and YouTube and giving my age away here, and basically anything social media related was virtually non-existent, right? So you're forging this new uncharted path. Who knew that 14 years later, it would be what it is today? What was the real impetus behind starting a food specific blog in a world where it just didn't even exist?
Yeah, it was really the early days of blogging, and there were very few people who were doing it, and even fewer who were doing it well. My godmother actually had a very small little food blog, and she messaged me one day and she's like, you should really follow the Pioneer Woman. Like, she writes all these fun stories about cooking and falling in love with her husband and having kids. And I started following Ree, who's now a friend, and it's weird how that's how it all started. But I was obsessed with reading her love story and how she wrote and how she put a recipe with some of her stories. And that's why I started What's Gaby Cooking, because I was about to start culinary school. And I was like, well, I can tell these stories too. And I'm not nearly as good of a writer as Ree. Like the woman is such an incredible storyteller. I am not that as far as like writing, all these, whatever. She's just a better writer than I am.
Well, millions of followers would beg differently, but go ahead.
But Ree's really good at like telling this love story and crafting it and publishing it in pieces. I write very stream of conscious. Like write like you're in my kitchen with me and I'm talking to you right here. And that's how I'm educating you. And it's just, different strokes for different folks. So, but that was kind of the impetus to start What's Gaby Cooking. I was like, she can do it. I can do it too.
I love it. I love it. Many of our listeners are aspiring food entrepreneurs, let's say, and I imagine most people know that running a business, a blog, it's full time. It's a lot of work, and there's undoubtedly a huge learning curve, especially when it comes to the dollars, right? Like, how does this make sense? Pun intended. Yeah. So, was it a learn as you go mentality back then?
As far as monetizing it?
Yeah.
So, the money didn't. So it's really interesting because I have so many friends who will look at what I do now and they're like, oh, well, we want to quit our jobs and go into content creation, regardless of whether that's food, fashion, beauty, whatever. But the money isn't there when you start. So like when I started What's Gaby Cooking back in 2009, 2010, it wasn't even remotely profitable for 4 or 5 years. And I private chef the entire time until, I decided, okay, What's Gaby Cooking is making a decent amount of money. I've got money saved up. I can afford to make this jump and see if it works. If not, cool, I'll go back to finding another job. But the money really wasn't there. It was a learn as you go. And I started, putting advertisements on my site, and I started doing small brand deals for a couple $100 here and there. And as my audience grew and I got better at advocating for myself, I just started adding, like, instead of a $200 blog post, now it's, $400. And that kind of, it was a real learn as you go. And eventually, as I became a little bit more, of a force, a management team approached me and they helped, really develop the business part of it and, all that kind of stuff. But I've worn every hat. I've done every aspect of What's Gaby Cooking. So now, while I have help with a lot of different things, like I scrapped it all together to start.
My favorite part of that share is that I was going to say something about how intimidating is this, but it almost feels like you just face those challenges head on rather than getting intimidated and pausing. It's like, let's innovate, let's pivot, like, that word pivot, but still you were pivoting before people pivoted, right?
I'm a big believer in pivoting. I'm also a big believer in not hearing no. Like if someone tells me no, okay, cool. Like I'll go find someone to say yes. Like I don't take no well.
No, it's a great skill. We have, here at Escoffier, we just launched in January a brand new online food entrepreneurship program. So blogging, social media is a big piece of it. Opening up your own business, that sort of thing. Without giving any secrets away, are there any specific skill sets or even this idea of perseverance or grit? What is it that you would say to a classroom of aspiring entrepreneurs?
I mean, I'll give it all away. I'm an open book, but I think when you're starting a career and you're figuring out where you want to go, you have to figure out who you are and what's your voice and what do you stand for? And like, for lack of a better word, what's your brand? I think I like fumbled a lot in my first couple of years because I didn't know what that was. And when I figured it out with my mentor, things started just like hockey sticking up. And I think in order, whether you're starting a restaurant, whether you want to be a photographer, whatever it is, you have to figure out that nugget, because then you can use that for everything you do. That was the biggest turning point for me. So I would say you do it for all these people who are starting, do that. Like really think about what you want to say. What's your story?
Incredible advice. Yes. Yes. So here, I'll make you blush. Your personal brand, in my opinion, it's really based on a sense of community. You know, right? What you land on your site, it's warm, it's inviting, it's approachable, it's easy to navigate. Like, oh my gosh, look at all the recipes are not intimidating, right? They're intoxicating, they're inviting, right? And you've mentioned in an interview that I read that food doesn't have to be fancy, homemade, everything from scratch. That's not the world that we live in anymore. I think you think people just really appreciate being together, you know, quote unquote, you know, really, really well said. I don't know if you remember saying that, but you said it.
Yeah.
And so you've talked a little bit about how you developed your own brand. Some of it's serendipitous. Have you seen, Gaby, let's just talk about the pandemic just for a minute, coming out of that, going through that, have the dynamics of people's needs changed even recently in your opinion?
I think, you know, COVID was such an interesting time for us personally. We got pregnant, we had a baby, we were very, very careful about seeing people. And then when the world kind of started to open up again, it became very apparent to me as, you know, the head of What's Gaby Cooking, that everybody just wanted to see their friends. And that didn't matter. It didn't matter if you were buying pimento cheese from Safeway and bringing it to someone's house for a barbecue. You are going, and people don't say no to invitations very much anymore. So like the dynamics, I guess, changed in that people want more entertaining recipes that are approachable so they can also bring people around their table, and they want to feel like they're a rock star in the kitchen and have the confidence to be like, yeah, I can cook for 6 of my friends. I don't have to make a 75-hour lasagna, but like I feel good about what I put on the table. So I think that's become more apparent in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, well said. And this next question is kind of unfair, but so 14 years forward, would you have done anything differently? But you don't have the luxury of knowing what you know now.
Yeah. No, probably not. I think failing is really important, and we certainly failed doing many things. You know, like I worked with brands I probably would never work with because I'm like, well, it's $500. That's a lot of money. Like I needed to pay my rent, but it's not really something that was true to what I stood for. So no, I wouldn't. I think all those experiences help you learn and become a better business owner.
No. You said a minute ago that you have the luxury now of having some other people to help with the business. And a huge part of branding is also centered, even in my business, right, on how we interact with our audience, our students in our case, your customers in your case, your viewers. You've also stated that I read that, quote, I'm in the business of customer service and making people feel comfortable in the kitchen. And if it's not me answering their questions, then it's a total sham, unquote. Yeah. That's really powerful. Is that really, really important for you? And is it challenging to maintain that level of excellent customer service, unapologetic customer service with your accelerated growth in the business?
It is still just as much of a priority as it is when I said that. I don't remember what interview that was, but I do remember saying that. And it's
powerful. Yeah.
It is equally as important today as it was then. And I respond to every single question on my website, on my Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. Like if you have a question, I will answer. And most commonly I do it via voice note now because it's faster for me to talk to you than it is for me to type. But that's just part of my job. Like I know there are many people in similar situations as me that have people responding to all of their DMs. And if that's what works for them, cool, that's what works for them. But like,
Yeah.
I attribute a lot of my success and, you know, the success of my brand to my audience. Like I couldn't do everything I do without them. Like I couldn't host all these incredible dinner parties in all over the country and the world unless they were ready to come along with me. And that comes from developing their trust and being there for them. And if someone's having a problem in the kitchen, I can look at the picture they sent me pretty quickly and tell them what I think they should change, or, you know, how to remedy whatever. That's always going to be a priority for us.
Yeah, brilliant. If we could talk a little bit about the social media piece, and I don't want to get over my own skis with my knowledge, but in your opinion, Gaby, has the influencer marketing environment evolved in the way that it should, in your opinion, over years? Tough, right?
That's a tough question. Gosh, I mean, I think it's incredible the opportunities that quote unquote content creators and influencers and entrepreneurs are getting. Like I have some very amazing opportunities on my plate right now that I wouldn't have had 5 years ago. Like this industry wasn't where it was 5 years ago. I don't know. I think it's a tricky line to toe with social media because I think so many people are so obsessed with it. And a lot of people have to remember that it's like not everything. And that if Instagram disappears tomorrow, you still have to be able to operate your business outside of that. So it's not the end all be all. So I think you got to take all these platforms with a grain of salt and make them work for you while they can. But you have to also know, like for me, what'sgabycooking.com is a website I own. That is my hub. Everything is housed there. So if Facebook or Meta or everything they own disappears tomorrow or TikTok goes away, I still have my home.
Yeah.
So social media is a weird place.
Yeah. But very smart though. So super great advice. And it kind of didn't have this question before, but now that you just said that, any thoughts on sponsored content?
I think sponsored content when done well is incredibly powerful. We get, hit up by various brands and PR agencies. I turn about 85% of them down before even sending them off to my team because it's something that I know I can't stand behind. It doesn't matter how much money they have. If it's the biggest dollar in the world, like I can't work with XYZ because that's not something I would ever use in my life anyways. But when you do find a great partnership, it's incredibly powerful to be able to tell a brand message through someone like me and make it like easily digestible for an audience.
Oh, I love the integrity around that comment. That the questions just keep flowing. To that point, are partnerships critical? Again, I'm thinking like a student to the ecosystem that you live in.
Yeah, they're a bit. So like, it's so funny. I was making this like diagram of how we like what's going on in What's Gaby Cooking right now. And there are 8 facets to it. And there are 8 revenue streams that go into What's Gaby Cooking. And sponsored content on my website and social media platforms is the most lucrative for sure.
If at the top of the hour, we kind of use the term superwoman, and there's so much on your plate. Again, pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so grateful that you found time to chat with us for a little bit. I absolutely love it. Without all the detail, and I know. You're on the clock. What is a day in the life? What's most important to you? You mentioned your daughter, you mentioned your husband, you mentioned, what's important, but from a business perspective, where do you center your priorities?
Yeah, every day looks very different for me. But my priorities are, keeping my audience like happy, like I'm answering all their questions. I spend a lot of time doing that every day. I mean, outside of my family stuff, if we talk about a real day in the life looks like, I wake up, I hang out with Poppy for a couple hours, I go work out, she goes to do her thing, I do my thing, my husband works with me, and we're, head down from 9 to 4, basically. But then again, after Poppy goes to bed, we work for a couple hours at night. So we're always working, but we feel very grateful. It just depends on the day. Sometimes I'm at the studio shooting content. Sometimes we're doing video here. Sometimes I'm at like a convention for a brand, being their spokesperson. No day looks the same unless it's like breakfast with Poppy and the gym. Like those are constants because those fill me up.
And I love that all too often. And we hear it's changing just in the food world, right? We get all caught up. And I love that you mentioned exercise, the gym. Super, super important, right? It's uncompromised, right?
If I don't work out, I mean, like, I eat a lot of food. Like, I could put down more food than the average human. I have no shame in that game. If you sat me down next to like a linebacker, I'd eat more than him, period. But it's really important for me to keep my body in like not peak physical form, because I'm not like that. I'm not in that good a shape, but working out's a really big part of keeping my brain and my body feeling good.
No, those are good messages that all young culinary professionals and food lovers should hear. Getting back to content, cookbooks, and so much more. I'm just curious about the editorial calendar, right? You said every day is a little different, but I imagine the planning is just critical. And is it 3 months out, 6 months out? Are trends changing so fast that you've got to balance that? It's probably not easy, right?
I do love a content calendar. I live by a to-do list. So our content calendar is planned out probably 2 months ahead of time, but we also have the ability to pivot, on a weekly basis if we need to. And sometimes we do. Sometimes something comes up. I'm a newfound golf fan.
Wow.
I didn't know I was going to do a menu for the Masters, but now I'm going to do the menu for the Masters.
I just got to chill. I'm a big golf fan. I can't believe that. That's awesome.
I watched Full Swing on Netflix, and that really,
I just watched it last week. And if you
it
didn't love golf, you had to love it after that, right?
I'm like, do I think I'm going to be watching golf on the weekends? No, but can I appreciate the people behind it now? Because I learned all about them. Should Rory and I be best friends? Probably. But
give him my number, please.
I wasn't planning on doing a menu for the Masters, and now we're shooting it next week so it can go up before the tournament. So we have the ability to pivot, but we do plan, 2 to 3 months out. We know what holidays are coming up, what people are looking for. But we have to, my photographers are also very busy, and they shoot for really big companies. So we got to get stuff on their books ahead of time, because I'm not paying them as much as Taco Bell's paying them when they work for Taco Bell.
It makes so much sense. Yeah. What about cookbooks? Where does the time come, and what was the impetus for that? When did you start writing?
Yeah, so my first cookbook, I think, came out in 2013, and it was a small little cookbook all about avocados. I was in New York back in the day when blogger get-togethers used to happen all the time, and I was sitting next to an editor for a publishing house, and I was like, so who's next? Who's the next Ree? And he's like, I don't need the next Ree, I need the next you. And I was like, what? And he's like, what would you write about? And I very jokingly said avocados, because I didn't know what the heck I was going to write about. And it was really before I had developed my voice. This was in 2011. The book came out 2 years later in 2013. And it was an incredible educational opportunity for me. And obviously it sold 0 books because I had 0 followers at the time. Maybe I sold a couple thousand copies. And I didn't write another one until 2018. And I remember in 2016-ish, towards the end of the year, I got a call from this literary agent who I desperately wanted to represent me at the first book, but she wouldn't take me on. She called me and she was like, I've been watching you and I think you're ready. And I was like,
wow.
Okay. I hadn't even considered writing another book at that time because my first one did so poorly. And And she brought me on. She had me write a proposal. She ripped it to shreds. And it was a really incredible learning process for me. And then we went out and took the book to auction and picked our publisher, which was Abrams. We've subsequently published our last 3 books with them, and we just signed on to do the 4th book with them, which will be my 5th cookbook. It'll come out next year. And it was just, we knew what we were doing the second time around, and Janice was such an incredible guide for me. And I have the most amazing editor at Abrams, Holly, and like, we're now a very well-oiled machine, and we can, create this content for the books. But the book process takes, 18 to 24 months to come to fruition.
It's amazing. They say when you write a screenplay that you should write what you're familiar with. What advice do you have to someone who wants to write a book?
Yeah, I would say that definitely write what you're familiar with, write what makes you happy, because it's not that much fun. It's not glamorous. There's your recipe we test all the recipes that go in my book minimum 4 times. So it's a lot of cooking the same thing over again and over again, and a lot of tweaking, a lot of writing. The editing process is brutal. But then once it's edited and it's photographed and it's, assembled and ready for print, that's when all the fun stuff happens. At least for me, like, I love the marketing and PR portion of it. I love going out on book tour and meeting everyone in real life. That's like that's the payoff for me. And also it's not a lucrative thing. Like, unless you're
Sure.
like, you're not, that it's a marketing tool. Like, you can't go into cookbook publishing and think that's going to make you rich, because it's not.
I was going to ask, most of the chefs that are on the show, as we wind down, I always ask, music, motorcycles, or both?
Like, ooh, that's a great question. I'm gonna go with motorcycles.
Really? I love
Yeah.
it. I love it.
But,
Enduro
like,
or street bike?
I'm taking that as a metaphor for adventure and not the literal motorcycle.
100%. 100%.
'Cause I'm not getting on a
some take it for
motorcycle.
both. Some take it for both. Yes, they do. So what's the future vision look like for What's Gaby Cooking?
I mean, I want to just keep building my little mini empire that I have. We're doing another book, like I said. We just wrapped season 1 of a TV show. I think we live in this incredible time in the digital landscape where truly anything is possible. So we just kind of have to see what comes next. We're always, taking meetings and doing business development workshops and all that kind of stuff and brainstorming different ideas. So I think the future for What's Gaby Cooking is very exciting. I think I'll have to start hiring more people, because it's not something I can do all of it on my own, but I'm trying to get better at delegating every day. So hopefully I can make that happen and continue to grow.
What's Poppy or Thomas cooking?
I mean, Poppy is a crazy, amazing eater. I feel very lucky. Thomas is like uber healthy and is really good at grilling. So he like grills all of his food all the time. But they'll both eat everything.
I love it. I love it. Gaby, the name of our podcast is The Ultimate Dish. So my final question always is, in your mind, could be a memory, could be real. What is the ultimate dish?
Cacio e pepe from like a small little trattoria, like a little place in Rome.
Boom. And you
With
didn't
a
even see.
Big glass of Brunello.
And you
to be
didn't even
honest.
see the script. I love it. I absolutely love it. Can I just tell you, I adore you. I thank you so much for
you.
spending some time with us. We got it wrapped up before your next call.
Oh, I mean,
Stand
I
up
would
and
have stayed for
fix the
another 20
lights.
minutes.
You're absolutely delightful. And congratulations on all the success. And we'll keep
Thank
following.
you.
My
Thank
wife
you,
is going to
thank
go
you.
crazy.
Oh my God. Well, for sure, tell her I said hi. And if I'm ever in Colorado, I'll keep you guys posted.
You are welcome anytime. Thanks
Okay.
again.
Thanks,
And
guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Dish Podcast, brought to you by Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Visit escoffier.edu/podcast, where you'll find any materials mentioned during the podcast, including notes, links, and other resources. You can also browse other episodes and subscribe.